And we're back with me, Johnny McMurray, on the On The Spot Football Podcast for yet another fantastic guest. This one's for the Reds fans. He's been a captain from back in the day. This guy takes jokes to the limits, and you would remember the stuff from over lockdown. It's my pleasure to introduce Kieron O'Connor. Kieron?
Johnny, sure. You've got off to a bad start there. Captain, I never captained Cliftonville.
No?
No.
How come you done the captain's night then?
Because I was fundraising and I was using the previous captains. So.
There's me thinking all 10 of you were up at that Devonish thing as captains.
No,
So you've lied to everybody?
No, well,
You've made a contact of me here and then you've lied to everybody.
people probably thought I've just done it on purpose now. So, but no, I've never captained the Reds. I've been a captain.
Welcome back to On The Spot with Kieron O'Connor. Fuck's sake. Anyway, good start. How's things?
Very good, yep. Can't complain. Working away and a wee bit overwhelmed with an invite onto your show. You know, I'm a viewer of the show. Fantastic what you do and some really powerful stories. So I'm a wee bit, I'm very humbled and thank you for inviting me on.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to be chatting to you over the last couple of weeks, like to try and organise to get you on, because we've had some funny conversations back and forth through text messages, replays of videos from lockdown and conversations and stories. So I think I'm going to be brutally honest here and say that I can't wait to go through this conversation tonight, but I think the guests at the end and the viewers after watching this are going to agree that it's going to be a good one, I think.
Well, I did send you a PDF, so I didn't want to miss anything.
Very well prepared, as I always say.
Yeah, you know, I suppose that's through my coaching now, that you have to come prepared. So I thought I'd prepare you a wee CV of me.
Do you know what? I really do appreciate it, because when you have to dig into people's careers and trying to find out what they're doing, it's quite difficult. So when you came prepared, I was like,
you can't really Google me now because it's half the stuff's not even there, you know. So it's I suppose I didn't want to miss out on anything.
But the thing is, I've got Marshall Gillespie. He's on my side. He gives me the least of everything, and he is the stat man. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But listen, it's an absolute pleasure to have you in. As I say, I've enjoyed the conversations over the last week. So to dive right into it, we're going to take it right back. You know the way that it works now. You kind of know the process of what we do, how we get the stories to unfold. But take us right back to how it all began for you.
For me, growing up, I grew up in West Belfast in very privileged Poglass area.
Right.
You know, let's just say it was, you know, that was my roots. You know, it was a place I was proud to come from. You know, starting way back football. You know, that's all we done on the streets of Poglass, running about. You know, obviously most people might laugh. It's you were dodging joy raiders and blue sniffers and then you had a bunch of kids who were just playing football in the wee field back at my mum and dad's house. I played with a lot of, you know, names that, you know, maybe recognise. Barry Johnson being one. We grew up, you know, up a street from each other and football every day. And, you know, back in the day where there was no nets, you put your coat off, throw it down on the field and that was you know, albeit there was times, you know, Janty and his brother, they used to share a coat, you know. Right. So they were tramps back then, you know, so it's probably the reason why I probably train more than, or practice more than Janty, you know, because he wasn't there half the time, you know. But I don't want to mention Janty too much, you know. But that, growing up, as I say, that was our sort of, our journey. And all the friends growing up, football was your thing. And, you know, it was just my passion, it was my love. And, you know, it was something I just really, really grew accustomed to. This is what I want to do. And that's how it started.
Over in West Belfast, when you're a young kid, there's a lot of different teams that people can choose from, where academies are quite good over. I think like the likes of St Oliver Plunkett, whenever I was growing up, was always quite big. Always had really good players, really good talent coming out of West Belfast. Celtic boys, who you've mentioned you were with.
Yeah.
What was it like going to Celtic boys at the time? And things start to escalate quite quickly for you in terms of getting recognised and.
Celtic boys was the main club. You know, never mind Plunkett. Celtic boys was the main club.
No rivalry.
It was the rivalry. You know, so. Our main rivals, and obviously you had the likes of St Andrews, you know, who were a big club, and but for me it was Celtic boys, the famous Dino, Jim Heaney, a few other coaches, McDonald, Manuel Haggerty, the name Brian McKiernan, that there's a nickname, who's actually in hospital at the minute, so we wish him well. But going back to Dino, Big Dino was knocked my mum's front door. Obviously I played with his son, Dehaney, in the school, and you know that's sort of where he came to know where I was decent at football back then, and from I think it was under 9, sorry, and just worked my way into some friendships who other lads who were playing there as well, you know. So that's where it started, Celtic boys, and I mean some of the talent that's came from that club.
Yeah.
Players who went on and played at the highest level, you know. I think Neil Lennon at one stage was at Celtic boys a few years before me, and but so many talented players, as I say, a lot of Irish League players just came from that club. And obviously, you know, certainly in my team from Irish League, there was myself, Damien Kern, who was at Linfield, and Conor Hagan, who had more clubs than Tiger Woods. But
Higgy's so mad too, isn't he? Just,
well, we were best mates, you know.
Yeah.
D Kern, great guy, you know. Had so many, you know, great lads in that team, and so many characters, you know, as the older you got, you know. But that was a club for certainly a lot of boys. You know, you didn't necessarily have to be from West Belfast. We had players from Antrim, and as where Damien Kern's from, and it was either Celtic boys or St Andrews who were their main teams, and very, very talented and well looked after club, you know, as I say, from Dino, and he was a big part of my sort of love or grounding in football, where he was a mentor, not just to me, but to so many young kids, and, you know, encourage you. But there was a fear factor with them, you know. Some coaches, you know, just, I've played with so many coaches, but Dino was always one that stuck out, where you always wanted to impress him. You were scared with his presence, and you wanted to do the right things. And he used to say, you know, wee snippets of things that just encourage you to do the right things. And, you know, I suppose through repetition of training with Celtic boys, and then what we done on the wee field in Polglass, you know, really catapulted me to just, you know, I suppose what kids don't do today as much is practice.
Yeah.
Do you know, and you know, and that always stands out for you know, a lot of ex-players when you have conversations. Is like, you know, you don't see that no more. And you know, I had the posters on the wall, you know, of John Barnes, Ian Rush, and all, you know, and just lived and dreamed about football every day, you know. So
too much outside noise now, isn't it, with kids, Xboxes, PlayStations. People want to sit inside, and I mean, all you be kind of have back in the day, before you did, there wasn't even cell phones back then, so I mean, but you had a ball and you had a wall, and you were just trying to smash off a wall, or playing headers and volleys, or games like that kind of just passed hours. Do you know what I mean?
Again, I touched at the start. We were tramps, to be honest. You know, at the start, it was a ball, a bike, and you just stand there about the streets. But it was the best days of your life. You know, you made your own fun, you made your own luck. You know, your friendships, whatever. And the kids today, just, you know, it's hard to keep. You know, I have two young lads myself here, and heavily in their football, and you know, I probably bore them a wee bit too much of the, you know, what it was like back then. But it's I suppose we're in an era now where this is the thing, the social media, the phones. It's quite worrying, you know, how much kids are heavily involved in that, you know. And you know, I've seen it as a parent, seeing it as a coach with my coaching of Cliftonville, but also from working in social work, you know. So I've seen every avenue of how dangerous and detrimental it is, you know. So in hindsight, you do wish that some of these kids had that sort of grounding of just being out on the street, kicking the ball against the wall, because I at times I think it's missed.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's something that you can't really force on kids, but it's one of those things that you want to spend most of your times outside.
Yeah.
I mean, getting rejection and all these different things when your kids are being told to go home or split their...
Yeah.
You take your ball off somebody because you don't want them playing because they're better on you. That's what I used to get in there.
Yeah, well, that was something...
That probably didn't happen to you, but it happened to me.
No, it happened to my brother. We used to put him in nets all the time, you know, because he wasn't good enough to play out. So it was never...
Even did the huff. See, I was always quite heavier than everybody, so I was always nets, and then I had a ball, and then I just cracked up and went and kicked it by myself.
Well, you know, it was generally my brother he was the easiest target, you know, and I actually had a nickname. John used to call me, you know, everyone loves Raymond,
Right.
and my brother was Robert, you know, so
Romano.
that's what it was like, you know. So he was the easiest target and wasn't too good outfield, so and he went.
At what age do you start realising that people are starting to look at you in a different way, where you're probably a step ahead of everybody else who's in the team, and there's interest coming from England? Because it kind of happens when you're like 12. You know what I mean? 12.
It was quite young. Just to be clear, I was the best player in the team, you know, with D. Kieran, and Conor Hagan was probably been third best, you know. But it was. I was going on trial, as was Damien, Kieran, and Connor, and quite a lot of Celtic boys players from under 12.
Yeah.
You know, very, very. And when I mean on trial, I mean it was a full week in the summer. You were going to Halloween for the week, you were going to Christmas for the week, and Easter for the week. So, yeah. I done that for up to 2 years. You know, you were just playing on a Saturday. Obviously, Celtic boys was one of the main feeder clubs within you know the Belfast region, and I'd imagine just had the scouts and had obviously the relationship with Glasgow Celtic around you know certain players going over, and so it was going over a load of us on the boat and spend that time and training with all the kids maybe from Scotland or coming up from England and stuff, and we were just getting a wee bit more accustomed of what sort of the professional side of it was, and it was new to me, and I just was trying to just do what I normally do, you know, and just run about, big massive head as I have, you know, trying to get on the end of things, you know, in the football pitch, you know, but that's how it started, you know. It was quite early, yeah.
Was it scary at that age, being 12, going over to Celtic, or was it more exciting for you, thinking, I love Celtic and this is something that I would love to do, and obviously being it's a Lennox town and maybe go and train in different places like that, you're sitting going like, this is unreal.
You may think I'm mad here, but it was a different type of scary because I used to piss the bed. I had a buzzer. I swear. So I not even kidding you, you know, and
when you were away, or just naturally?
Just naturally in the house, I used to piss my own bed, and then middle of the night the buzzer never worked. You know, it was meant to work with when moisture hit it. Obviously it didn't, so I got him beside my brother and pissed his bed, you know. So that was initially my first fear. But I was never allowed to stay out for
sleepovers and stuff.
Okay. Which meant my brother wasn't allowed to stay out because you can't leave your brother, you know. So but looking back now, back then that was initially anyone's fear, you know, and I suppose the more I done that there, the more I relaxed. I don't know, was it anxiety, you know? Looking back on my life, you know, on things like that there where I had a lot of fear, you know. Not the only way I didn't have fear was on the football pitch, you know.
Yeah.
Because as I say, I grew up in Polvas, and you know, I could count in one hand how many times I'd seen maybe someone getting kneecapped, say to my mum's house, or the joyriding, or just the drink or the glue sniffers or whatever, you know. And I suppose it sort of made me have a bit of fear, as I say, and just hearing all the, you know, the sirens and stuff, you know, which back then it was, you know, there was a lot of rat and stuff and all going on, so it might have had a reason behind, you know, the wet in the bed, you know. So
what's it like now? Under control or still flat out?
With a few Guinness, no, my Jones. I got over that fear. At the age of 14, that was the end of that. So
good,
yeah.
Well, good stint there, like going away for 2 years. Tennessee, wet in the bed.
Well,
this the whole conversation now for an hour and a half could be us getting the water meat.
Well, I'll go easy on this one. I'll go easy on the water. No, but that's going back. Obviously, your initial question, you know, going across there, the Celtic, and you know, I'm not a Celtic supporter, you know, but it was amazing. You know, everyone, you know, certainly is, you know, going up in West Belfast, it's all Celtic, or for St Andrews, it's Rangers, or whatever. But certainly, it was amazing to have that, to be recognised, to be a young player, you know, that Celtic wanted to have a look at, and it was a trial, and you know, I'd done well, and he's I suppose if you weren't doing well, you wouldn't be invited back, you know. So a few of us was getting, you know, quite a lot of opportunities, and it came down to where another couple of teams had, you know, come in. Wimbledon was in the Premier League at the time, and Crazy Gang, and obviously Bolton Wanderers, they had just been promoted to the Premier League, so that obviously happened about a year after all the, you know, the trial in Celtic. So I was going from between Celtic and Wimbledon and Bolton Wanderers, and there's a few other clubs, but I think things were escalating a wee bit quicker, and Celtic had offered myself and Damien. I think Damien was offered longer than me, like, but that's because he was a ball hogger. But we had they offered me 2 years, and fast forward when I went on trial with Bolton Wanderers, and there was a lot of Irish ones there, you know, Noel Kerrigan and Kevin Truman, Alan Power, you know, who really looked after me, these boys, you know, when they were a couple of years older than me, but they were there at the time, and me and Noel particularly would be still great friends today. And when I went over, sorry, Mickey McCleave, I should have mentioned, because his dad was the scout from Belfast, so Jerry, so that sort of was happening in between the Celtic thing, and so I went over to Bolton, and the Celtic thing was still, like, very much, I was very keen, you know. My brother and most of my family supported Celtic, so that was something that I was maybe getting spoke to from family, saying there or whatever. But like, an incident had happened, and I think I don't even know if I told many people this here, but there was I know Damien Kern probably remembers it, but we were on trial, and you got to know some of the players who was part of, you know, the setup, and the boy Craney, who ended up having a long career left back, ginger guy, he was one of the players there, and but there was a lad called Lawrence Haggard, and he played centre mid, and he always stuck out in my mind because he used to give me a really hard time. You know, he was quite confident young lad, and, you know, and giving the Irish, you know, dogs abuse or whatever. And so, but you know, went over and I played midfield, you know, in certain practice trial games, and then the next time we went over, he wasn't there. You know, he was quite deep us here, but he had been murdered for playing for Celtic. Yeah, so it was quite a big story and thing, but there was no social media. There was no we weren't banned papers, and you weren't aware, and the only local news you had was probably more serious stuff locally than what you're hearing in Scotland. So, you know, so there was wee things like that. What do you mean he's not here? You know, and then you were told, the 13-year-old, no, he's dead, and that was it. No conversation, no backup, no.
I just move on, mate. Just go back to football.
Just go and play. Yeah. And so you were like, well, probably shouldn't have been told that, but. So that was sort of playing in your mind or whatever, and then obviously went to Bolton, and I suppose for us going, you know, as I said from the start, the Irish contingent was it made it a bit of an easy, sort of more relaxed environment to try your best, and I done well, and that offered me longer than Celtic, you know, which was like a 4-year, and we agreed to sign it, and then I broke my leg on the very day, you know, of the agreement. You know, later on in a.
So you just signed that day and then broke your leg, or you?
No, we had verbally agreed. So I thought, that's it. You know, am I signing? But, you know, fair dues them that, you know, the follow through, and I'd obviously signed, but I was out for a year, you know, after breaking my leg. So, but that was the sort of start of the sort of process of the Bolton Wanderers journey, which was quite mad. Sort of fitted in between that was the Wimbledon trials, and me and Conor Hagan had went, and we were put up in the middle of Croydon, and like it wasn't even, it was like a travel lodge, you know, but a real shit travel, you know,
London, middle of London.
13 years old, and I don't even know what I'm going to say. I actually hadn't seen a person of different race or colour,
you
know, in the flesh.
especially at a young age too, and then you're just dropped into the middle of London, which is very.
And me and Connor weren't the sharpest of tools, you know, and we were just we had left. We were walking in the streets of Croydon, you know, at night time, you know, just to go to a shop, whatever. Probably had £1.50 between us, but you know, and you're like, what are we doing here? You know, even there's just the vulnerability of like safeguarding, and when you know, there was no amends, you know, there was no car, there was no one even in the hotel.
Yeah,
got put in a room.
It just seems to be the way it was back then. I know, like,
it was
no real disregard for it, but the amount of people we've had on who went away at such a young age have all said the same thing. It was like, there's your plane ticket. Your man and dad don't come with you. You get the train, and then somebody will either meet you at the other side, or you're gonna. Do you know what I mean? And you're just put in the hands of somebody who you have to put your trust in to take you to the right place.
Well, just on that point, you know, the later the worrying thing, you know, thankfully, you know, God, I feel for so many, you know, people had, you know, crossed paths, but the Celtic thing, each and every trial that we were picked up from on the off the boat, and I mean brought to your digs, ferried around the Celtic Park to your training ground, back and forth, and I'm talking 2 years. You know, that guy Jim McCafferty, who was a well-known paedophile, you know, in that setup, and had obviously it just shows you how mental that was. You know, the dangers, the risks involved, and you know, thank God every day that obviously. I don't think to my knowledge that any of us was affected, you know, and it just shows you that, you know, how dangerous, you know, back then it can be, you know, and the London thing was just surreal, you know, just like it was one of them just get me home moments. It was frightening and it was scary, and you go and you're expected to do well, you know, you had no family with you, no friends, no nothing. You just turn up and you just try and play your best. But I think even just the madness of just being there, you know, left to your own device, and I mean, I didn't know how to make toast, you know, and it was, and we're walking about London, you know, so it was a surreal moment, and it sort of in a way grew you up a wee bit quicker, a wee bit of awareness, and probably, and you lost that wee bit of naivety of being a young kid, you know.
What was it like then for Bolton? Obviously, you've just touched on now that you get a 4-year deal, or you verbally agreed a 4-year deal. Could have been whatever, 2-year scholar, 2-year pro, whatever it is, and you break your leg on the same day. Surely, as a kid, you're going, "That's me done." Like they might go to me, "That's us done." You've done it at the right time for them, because a club could very easily just say, "Listen, son, we're sorry, but we don't want to dish out 4 years' wages."
No,
do you know what I mean?
And that was, you know, I suppose, like when you even using the word mental health, I didn't even know what that word was, you know, back then, and I was probably experiencing that there, because you know, I thought it was the end of it, you know, and it hadn't even started, you know. So to work so hard to put yourself in a position where most kids would dream about, you know. So I'm thankful that obviously the follow through in terms of getting that opportunity to go and see what that sort of life looked like and what opportunity that was. But I just remember, you know, spent a couple of days in hospital before I was able to even like when I think back, I had to fly back myself. There was no one. They were brought me to the airport, but you know, they didn't even think to fly my parents or anything over. And you know, and anyone else would have. I was in plaster cast up to my groin and on my right leg, and when I actually think back, Bolton didn't even have a sense to book me 3 seats so I can put my leg up.
Just the one.
Just I think I said my leg's not going to fit there. Do you know,
standing the whole time?
No, I had to give, in the end, the air hostess put me on an aisle seat that no one was using, and she actually used her handbag to sort of prop my leg up a wee bit, which is about a foot. So what had actually happened was it was almost like breaking my leg again. I had to get all that took off again because the swelling and all that, you know, from the flight and whatever, and had to get it, you know, all reset again. But thankfully, you know, I was out of, obviously, the rehab and stuff like that there, which that Bolton had set up with a local physio in Musgrave, whatever, and was able to get support from that, and but I was out for a year, and just in my head for all that time, and try my best just to get back as quickly as I can.
What was it like finally getting to get back on the pitch? So a year out at such young age, breaking a leg, obviously detrimental tendency for you, and you're sitting going like, if I do all this right, I'm on the right verge here. But when you get back, you start to experience playing again. You end up going through the whole couple of years there, and there's good times obviously throughout it all too. But
yeah, and I actually I changed as a player even at that young age. I was unbelievable before I broke my leg in terms of dribbling and pace and whatever, and I'd lost a yard and fear, and I ended up having a touch like Ryan Catney for a bit, and but eventually, through time it sort of improved, and it was, as I say, it was just, I just felt like I had changed, and I just you're in your head and you're like, am I good enough? Am I going to be fit enough? So I worked tirelessly from the moment I was able to get back on the pitch again, which was amazing, and train. Got additional support from other coaches and stuff, and training, running coaches as well, so I just wanted to try and get back to be up to the level where I thought, I've missed a year, so I have to play catch up here. So I became obsessed of running and training, and probably where I get, as I say, playing Irish League, and I just run about, was never tired, up and down, box to box, just used to annoy players, I wasn't really a tackler, but just I was there. I was trying to nip the ball or whatever, or get on the end of things in the other end of the box. But that was sort of what I had done. I had cost myself. I want to play catch up here, and I want to get as fit as I can before I go.
Yeah. Whenever you get there, you get back. You're fit. You're ready to go. There must be big names at Bolton, because Bolton's just got ahead of the Premiership. They've just got promoted. There must be, like, who was in charge? Who was the manager at Bolton at that stage?
Colin Todd was the manager briefly for almost a year when I was there, and then Big Sam Allardyce had come in for the rest of my duration there, and
you always see big bits of Sam on TV at the minute. See the England job and stuff. It didn't go to his way, but I mean, if you think about what he was doing back then, long ball, route one, long throw-ins, all that sort of stuff, it's now modern day football, so I mean, what would you say he was ahead of his time?
Yeah, well, definitely, because that was 1989 when he came in. So, not many people would know how see the technology side of things and the running and the stats and all. We had these vests and all, and it was all about your running stats, and he was trying to get the best out of each player, and filtering it down into the reserves and the youth team players. But certainly watching it from afar, what he was doing with the first team. And every player at the club, he was ahead of the game in terms of what you see today, and on these the cameras and all, set up to see how other players were running, and how far they're running, and how fit they were, how much body fat they had. So he was all about that there, and that was one thing that stood out for me was how really intense he took it, and quite professional, to think all them years ago, and now it's just a normal thing.
At that stage back then, you're sitting going like, there's no chance we're doing this. This is probably so far away from the normal back then for somebody to come in and be like, you need to be this, you need to do this, and there's cameras up. And
well, it was probably because that was at the end of, it was a big drinking culture, certainly at the senior level, in the probably not for the Manchester Uniteds or the big, the real successful teams, but certainly the drinking culture was very much a normal thing there, and players out on a Wednesday night, Thursday night, depending obviously when their game was, but certainly at reserve team level and stuff, so it was very different to see that, wow, this wasn't, I guess, with Colin Todd, when he was there, with what he wanted from his players in the club and the younger players and stuff, whereas Sam was completely different, everyone was included, it was all about fitness. It was all about what you do off the field, how you add the change. They changed all the catering and all the food types, and you were drinking obviously shakes and stuff, protein shakes and stuff. And from Colin Todd, he just wanted to play cricket.
Yeah,
That was actually my first day at. I turned up at Bolton Wanderers, my first ever day as an academy player, and he cancelled training. He says, "You aren't training. You're playing cricket. I fancy a game of cricket." I didn't know what cricket was, and I stood because obviously he wanted to find out who was English and Scottish or Irish, and he knew that Ireland didn't have a cricket team back then. So I didn't know what that was. So he sent me to the far end as a fielder, and I stood at the back wall for about 3.5 hours, 4 hours. Just the ball never came, but just stood there. The first day. And
so mental, isn't it? Like, why? Like, what's that get you? Like,
he was funny. Like, he was a character. Like, he was actually quite good with the young ones from time to time. And his son Andy, Todd was playing at the time, and he was brilliant with the young lads as well. He was a character and feisty character, and a lot of stories that hit the headlines in terms of.
Is that Toddy? It's
Toddy,
the guy who was just knocking people out.
Yeah, and he knocked out Phil Brown as Toddy's assistant. He ended up, so that was mental. It broke his jaw.
Was he not with like Fino? Was he not like the assistant manager or somebody here in the Irish League?
He was. What was the Fino?
Is it Linfield?
I can't even remember where he. I think
it was definitely somewhere.
I remember
it
was. Yeah, I'm
pretty sure he cracked somebody in the Irish League too at some point.
He was insane. He was tough as nails. Yeah. But yeah, that was the Toddy era, and then which was, as I say, it was only a year for me, and then Sam Allardyce had brought in all these nutritionists, as I say, but he actually loved bringing foreign players in.
Right.
The amount of foreign players. Obviously, you've seen as the years went on, he had JJ Okocha, Fernando Hierro, Georgiev, absolute world beaters. But he had already implemented, even at the younger youth reserve team level, there was all like players coming from France, from European countries, all and there we were, the English and the Irish ones. I had Icelandic, Italian teammates. It was insane, but great lads and great times.
See the culture differences between you at that stage coming up through where you came up from, and then you get these Italian kids or Spanish kids. Yeah. Are they very different in terms of like going out and drinking, or are you interested in drink at that stage? Is it easy for someone from here to go across there and kind of fall into that culture before it kind of gets taken away? Yeah,
well, I went to England. I never drank. I could just picture some people who watch your show might be laughing, who know
what you're like now.
Yeah, but I never drank when I went to England, obviously, and I was obsessed with my fitness and trying to eat well and do as best as I can, and be the fittest player. But then just some of the characters, as I said, I mentioned Noel Kerrigan, Kevin Truman. Kevin Truman's actually one of David Healy's best mates, so I had no chance, I was mixing with them boys, and it was brilliant crack. And again, they were sort of, as I said, about that culture. That was the norm for them guys. They were 2 years ahead of me, but they were out once, twice a week. Yeah. And I fell into that at a very, very, very early stage of my boat career. And we, our team, we spent more time concentrating on where we were going on a Saturday night than we were playing on a Saturday, And this is actually true, Bill. We were playing Man United Academy at Accrington Stanley's pitch. That's where we played the home games, and we're warming up, and our coaches are geeing us up and all, and then we're doing the wee warm up, whatever, and they had like Luke Chadwick and stuff and Nardiello and players like that there. I can't even remember some of the other ones, but players who went on to have a decent career. And we're talking about what we're doing that night,
Yeah.
And that's how sort of mental it got, how much the mind had went, the other way, and not really focusing on why you were there. Bear in mind that I'm living in Diggs with a family who, by the way, I'm still in contact with today, Irene and Malcolm. Visit them. We're in contact regularly, and it's they were amazing. But at the same token, I had no family there. You had your own device. You done what you pretty much wanted. You got free cinema passes, bowling passes, food passes. Go and watch any match you want. You were paid. And you were like, this is amazing, you know. So, and again, not forgetting we were young lads, 16, 17, and it sort of was, I suppose, the group that came together, who still do reunions as well, which I was on one there a few months ago, and we all just clicked. We're all like brothers, and you know, some of the best guys, you know, and just really had an amazing time, and we sort of started to focus on probably the wrong things, and which was, if you want to be a footballer, that's not the thing you do, you know. So
everybody has like slight, I wouldn't say regrets, because it's probably made you, and probably the memories are different now. You probably look back on it going like, some of the best times I had was with that wee group of people who are still your best mates today. So it's kind of hard to probably put it in the perspective to say, I wish I had done it, but at the same time you're like, what a time, do you know?
I do regret, you know, obviously the amount of drinking that we were doing, you know, particularly when you had a young kid like who I was, obviously wanting to live out his dream of being a footballer, you know. But again, my good friend Joe McDonald had touched on his amazing interview they done. It's just levels. There was just, you know, there was just absolute. There was a gulf and gap of the. I'm a kid from West Belfast who trained two nights a week at Celtic boys and kicked the ball and a wee field, you know. Whereas some of these kids are training 5-6 times a week, you know, in terms of with their clubs, and just well looked after, different upbringing. And even today, you know, you still see it today with the level of kids and the opportunities from academies in England that compared to here. There's a huge gulf. So I wasn't naive enough to, you know, maybe at the start I thought, you know, I'm good enough, but then I started to doubt myself, and but I wasn't shying away from the fact that I had amazing time, amazing memories, you know, and but I wasn't good enough, and you know, that's at times I used to struggle with that as an adult, you know, many conversations with my wife, and you know, you thought, you know, even when you came back from England, you know, as I'm sure people has mentioned on your show as well, about you thought you weren't good enough, you know, you were labelled, you were just a trophy. I found that quite a lot, where you were just, I tried my best, you know, done all these years of practice in Belfast and Celtic boys and trials, being very young and vulnerable to having an opportunity in England, and some people might say you pissed it away, you know, but at times, yes, I made wrong choices, but there was no way. The level was incredible, you know. It was just it was a few more steps above the ladder, you know, of the ladder I was on, and there was so much more you had to, you know, sacrifice, and so much more support you needed, you know. Kevin Nolan, who went on to captain West Ham and obviously Newcastle, and he's got millions in his bank account because I've seen it. So he was a teammate of mine. We played centre midfield together, and but he was, when you look back, he wasn't brilliant in the academy, and he was a good player, but he was obviously really blossomed and, you know, kicked on, you know, as a couple of years went on with his time at Bolton. But he, you know, we were just finding ourselves, you know, in an environment where mine was different to his. He was going home to his parents. His parents was there all the time, you know, sometimes at the training ground watching his training, and which was amazing. I think it's definitely a big factor, and, you know, around stability, having a good home life, you know, someone you can talk to, you know, someone.
Right, the comfort of going back to your own home near enough, and
just to say that, you know, you're doing okay, you know, or reflect, have a conversation around. And unfortunately, I grew up in a household that we didn't talk. You know, your feelings was pushed to the side, and you weren't allowed to. I'm not saying you weren't allowed, but you just didn't talk about how you felt. You didn't talk about the fears or the good times, and everything, as I say, was just brushed under the carpet. It's only, you know, really later, and I mean later in my life. I'm married nearly 20 years next year, and my wife is forever like getting the goodness out, you know, out of me, and, you know, and bringing the best out of me, of just, you know, just being open and honest and having a conversation, and not thinking that you were a failure, not thinking that you made wrong choices. You know, it was the path that I was on, And you know, when you weigh it up, you know, there's a lot of bad in that journey, a lot of sad times, you know, but equally I have friends for life. I have a landlady and landlord who were like mum and dad to me, you know, and obviously different, but in the degree what I was saying about just getting home and having that sort of comfort, but there was days where you just had to live it in yourself. You're in your own head again, and also from quite a young age, you found the comfort in your teammates.
Yeah.
And unfortunately that led to us socialising and all that, you know. So
that was your comfort, man, the other day. Yeah. You know what I mean? Going, yeah, but at what stage then do you realise that coming up to 4 years, you're kind of like, right, I'm kind of going back? Is there other clubs that you can potentially go to before actually coming back, or had you made the decision to just
no,
I want to go back home?
I went to Plymouth Argyle for a bit, and done very well. Paul Sturrock was the manager, and obviously there was conversations where then I had an agent. We all had an agent. It was the same agent who sort of looked after most of the Bolton young players, and particularly the ones who were leaving. So I went down to Plymouth, which is and again, a young lad like me, you said you're going to trial, play a game for Plymouth, and I thought it was just down the road. It was 6 hours in the train, you know, way at the bottom of England, and I'm going, what is this? So again, wee bag, get there, play the game, done well, and then they wanted me to stay so that was a Saturday, played the game, and they wanted me to stay and train on the Monday, and it sounds really, really mad. I suppose one of the regrets was like, I actually had really good friends who were local lads from Bolton, who were supporters, and you know, from one of my teammates, and that was his friends, and one of them lads' 18th birthday that night, and I didn't want to miss it, and I actually sacked off. I literally sacked off staying with Plymouth on the Monday to go all the way back up the northwest of England to go on the piss for 2 days, and that was it. Plymouth. And the agent rang me, and you know, the Plymouth guy rang me, where are you? And I was literally just getting out of my bed, you know. And so yeah, I had that. That was the regret. I went to Halifax, who were probably League Two at the time. Paul Bracewell, Neil Redfern were 2 ex-Premier League players, you know, and again, they were up from that. So, you know, I was there for most of pre-season with them guys, and they just turned around and said to me, for us to bring you, who is slightly older than one of our academy players, you're going to cost this in terms of wages, whereas he's for nothing, you know, he's local lad and stuff, and we don't really have the money and stuff like that there, and you know, and in the end you just got all the bullshit stories and stuff. Yeah. And then again, you could, you know, a lot of players who were maybe not getting games in the Premier League or games in the Championship were going down to these teams, and they were top players, you know, and you know, the breakthrough, you know, the more I started to convince myself, I need to get home, and this is not for me, and went back to Bolton, because I was released with a year left in my contract, and so I found myself we're playing reserve team football, or just there was, as we were called, the stiffs, so it was like about 8 of us who were just surplus the requirements, but you were still there, so you'd been maybe a dummy playing in a practice game against the first team or with the youth team, whatever, and because I was still like I was still quite young, like, you know, so you're still in, because the academy was like under 19 as well, so I could still play for the under 19s and stuff. So it's just weird the way it was. If you were an academy scholar, whereas you could still be the same age, but you had a pro contract, and you were sort of treated differently. You might have been invited the days out of the first team and stuff, you know, which I suppose didn't help me either. You know, you were going the day at the races, you were having the Halloween fancy dress parties. Like I was dressed as Robin Hood running about Bolton with Eidur Johnson, who was dressed as like Batman. Eidur Johnson, like, who played with Barcelona and all, you know, and that's how mental it was, you know. So if you had a pro contract, you were invited to these things.
You were kind of like a level ahead, not a level ahead, but like further in the list because of your status.
Yeah, and it was mad to think, and you're like, what am I doing here? Do you know, I don't belong, and you know, and Peter Beardsley, you know, Dean Holdsworth. Don't mean to throw all these names out, but certainly for anyone who remembers, certainly some top players who were absolutely amazing back in the day, you know, and Scott Sellers and Michael Ricketts, who went on to play at England and stuff, you know. But I had friends, you know, who were coming over to visit me, you know, and they were getting horseback rides with people, these players in the nightclubs and stuff, you know. You were just treated as if you're one of them, and but it was mad. It was surreal sort of moments where, in the end, it was starting to fizzle out. You didn't want it to fizzle out. You didn't want to go home because of the friendships. And I actually wanted to live in Bolton, but it just, you know, I didn't know what to do. I left school when I was 15, you know, with a few GCSEs, no real pathway, no real, you know, I suppose God rest my mum and dad are no longer here, you know, but there was no conversations around sort of what next, or maybe there was some conversations, but I was blanking it off and I didn't want to have them. I thought, no, I'm going to be a footballer, you know, and I suppose the lesson today that I suppose me as a coach would be forever telling, you know, the players, the young kids, you know, the under 14s, about the importance of education and
having something to fall back on.
And then their parents, you know, as well. You know, this is so incredibly hard. You know, it's a toxic environment, as we know, and ruthless, opinionated. So you may be flavour of the month, but at a high level, at the professional level, you know, it was a bridge too far for me. You know, and it was memories I'll never forget. But it was just a real reality check around that I'm nowhere near this level, and that in time I started to accept. But I suppose when you came back, you had people maybe laughing at you and knowing you're shite, and you're, you know, not just me, Connor and Damien Kern and stuff, you know, because we went over at the same time and stuff, and Noel Kerrigan, whatever, and who weren't nice at times, you know, so you just wanted to bury your head in the sand, like, and what people do forget is like, you had to reset, you had to start again, and you're like, well, what am I going to do, you know? The Irish League wasn't as accustomed as it was today, and, you know, certainly financially and stuff, you know, so I just thought, well, what next? So I took time away, you know. My dad obviously came over when I was at Bolton, packed their stuff up, come back, and just had to reassess and think, well, what's the next chapter for me?
What was it like coming home after you've made that decision? Potentially having the stuff at a job, for one. You probably have to figure out what you're going to do in terms of getting a wee bit of work in, getting a wee bit of money in, trying to find yourself in a new club. Obviously, you're saying you've taken a bit of time away. You wanted to kind of reset and probably stay away from it for a while. And then who got you back into it? Who wanted you to kind of come in, get your feet back into the boots and start playing again?
I never had a job, a official job, till I was like, I was almost 21 and a half I was. So that was surreal, like, because, I mean, there was no real life, you know. I as I say, I was 15 when I went over there. I was spending most of my years, as I've mentioned earlier, that, you know, around the trials and dipping in and out of education. No, nothing. It's just absolutely nothing. So for me, when I come back, you know, one of my brothers was living in Australia. He just come back, and I found myself. We came back for a bit of money. He came back for money in Australia, and found myself, I wasn't working. We were just going out at the weekends, and I was going to the gym, or going on the roads running and stuff. So I didn't really know what next. And then eventually, my dad was like trying to get me into a bit of part-time work, and I think I've done a couple of months posting letters for Royal Mail, you know, which that didn't last because I'm a summer player and I hated the cold, you know, and then I walking about posting people's letters, you know, I had to stop because I'd end up just putting in the loft, you know, and not do it. So what I was, again, through my friendship with Connor Hagan, you know, his mum and dad owned a snooker and bingo hall in West Belfast, and the Mel and Jerry, you know, they'd obviously known from Connor and his similar journeys, similar feelings, similar starting again, you know, so they were very, very helpful to, you know, sort of suppose get us back on the ladder of around certainly earning. So we worked in there, and we were able to get back, you know, playing, you know, in time, playing the football, whatever. But for me, I didn't play at all for months and months, and it was actually, again, another one who I really look up to was an unbelievable man, Paddy Kelly, who was at Donegal Celtic, and such a great man, great coach. He knocked my door. I didn't even know who Paddy was, you know, and obviously there was conversation through third party, whatever, you know, and he came to my door and, you know, had obviously sold what he wanted, and he was very much like a father figure to a lot of players within that club, and they were only playing, there was a Championship 2 equivalent at the time, you know, before they got all them promotions and stuff. So I went in there and I gave it a go, and, you know, he put the armour, I just needed someone to put the armour in me and, you know, feel the love and stuff, and that was the standout thing for me with, I suppose, in general, sorts of, from the England, the early stages of coming back here was just the, you know, feeling worthless, or the lack of love around showing that you have worth, you've something about you. And yes, at times you might have been feeling sorry for yourself, or, you know, you were playing a bit of a victim at times, but I just didn't have the tools or the skills to manage that, you know, because anything I had put my mind to, and I suppose looking back, it says when I arrived earlier, but I became accustomed of putting my mind to something, whether it's in work, sport, whatever, and succeeding to get what I want in terms of going to England, you know, which I'm very proud of, you know, getting the opportunity to go there, you know, playing for Northern Ireland. I suppose under 18 level was the highest I went to. Playing Irish League for over 12 years, you know, and certain, you know, doing social work for and even in my own current job at now, where I'm in Bombardier, you know, I was good at IKEA. I just thought to myself, well, I think I could make airplane parts, you know. Anyway, some friends would be laughing that I'm making airplane parts because I have hands like feet. My hands are like women's hands,
right?
You know, so
very soft.
So I'm just, I suppose the point I'm making is, like, you know, you can put your mind to anything you want to do, but what I've done most of my life is I've quit, and it's sad, you know. I quit too easily. I was distracted too easy, you know. You can fulfill any talent that you have, and you can, you know, with what hard work and application, and I've done that for nearly a lot of things I've done in my life, and it's only now in the last short while that I'm really experiencing what that feels like, or what, because, you know, for long periods I had no feeling or around that it's okay to have that feeling or disappointment, or to have them conversations where you suppress it, you hold it in, and reality is, you know, it gets you nowhere, you know. And I've learned, it's took me a while, as I say, to really, really establish around how to manage that, manage your emotions and stuff, and just be proud. And this, now I'm just really, really, I'm a wee bit more aware. I know I've worked in social work. I'm so good at helping others, and I just could not for the life of me for so long work on myself, or help myself, maybe hide it from time to time, and probably where some my humor comes from, you know, because it can be a mask around,
like a defense mechanism,
and but I'm okay with that now, because that in theory is my personality, and just trying to dig deep a wee bit more myself, which is very, very hard, but it's a slow process.
It's hard for anyone.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who listen to these podcasts, and I think they can't fall into the same category as what a lot of people say or talk about, or they're thinking to themselves, he's done this and he's got help, and I feel the exact same way. And kind of just people highlighting the struggles that they've been through or currently going through, or how they've been able to come out the other end, or how they've used certain mechanisms to kind of get themselves in a space where they feel comfortable, can ultimately help people. So I think you said to me the other day, it was just, if you can help one.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, absolutely. You know, in Irish League, you know, 9 out of 10 players, certainly the players I know have had their difficulties, 100%. Whether it's mental health, addictions, family bereavements, or just how they are as in their own wee personality and stuff. You know, it's just about opening the platform, and this is fantastic platform around. So, you know, one person maybe. I'll use the Joe McDonald one, where very brave. You know, for Joe took a long time for Joe to get to that point. And it's so crazy. So much respect for Joe, and he's part of his journey. I've known quite a lot of it, you know, and played with him at a couple of clubs and stuff, you know. So it's very, very important that, you know, that things like this give people an opportunity to particularly a viewing person from the public who maybe, well, actually, it is good to talk. It is good to open up, and it is good to feel that, you know, struggles do happen and stuff, you know. So, but overall, and for me, I'm a slow burn. I'm a work in progress. I'm trying to do the right things each day. You know, I have a fantastic life, a fantastic wife, 2 amazing kids, and I'm healthy, and, you know, and I have a job, you know, and these things are the most important thing, you know, and the rest, you know, you look back on just memories, you know, people, you know, who have touched your lives, whether in sport or you've crossed paths and stuff, and I think it's important that you celebrate them rather than see them as a failure or
100%.
Or something that's been a negative thing. But negative things happen, you know, within the football world, the professional world that I was in, you know, and some of my choices, you know, this is a wee bit funny, like, but you were mentioning about Sam Allardyce and stuff, and I remember being called into the day I got released, and we were all rakers as well, you know, our youth team and reserve players, we were all messers, and particularly as it was coming to an end when you knew what was happening. So, like, I had to run Sam Allardyce's bath every day. You know, you had to clean boots. Like, kids today have no idea. I had to clean like 6-7 pairs of 6 or 7 players' boots, and they probably had 6 or 7 pairs each.
Yeah,
I'm using that word 6-7 from my sons, because they'll be laughing. But so I had to clean about 42 pairs of boots every day. You know, like, run a bath for Sam Allardyce. And you're mentioning about what was it like when it came to an end and stuff. So I still had chores that day. So he called me into the office, his office, and I still had to run his bath and stuff. Right. Yeah.
Cool, obviously. Surely you had to do something.
I pissed in it.
100%. Well, 100% I had to do something, like, because there's no way that you're...
I did, and you know, not many people knew that there, and I let his tire down, you know, when he was in the bath, you know, and we had all the chores and all afterwards still, because we'd be later than the first team and all stuff like that, and you see the AA coming up and all, you know, to fix his tire, because he had this big top of range Merc, I think it was, and there it was, his tire was mangled, you know, because of me, you know, but he had just released me that day.
Yeah.
So he just called you into his office and said, how you think you've done? I think I'm doing well. Even though the signs is there, you know, but he says, no, that's you.
Just very blunt about it too, was he? There was no emotion, just that's you.
None.
Thanks, all the best.
Literally as cold and cutthroat, and it's like, you know, that's how they do it. You know, certainly that's how he done it. Yeah. You know, he didn't butter it up. He didn't
Didn't try
make
to
me
have-
feel.
aye.
You know, I suppose in a way, it was probably a lesson. You know, even though it wasn't a lesson at the time, it was probably a lesson. This is life. This is
It happens.
you're not good enough.
Yeah.
See you later. On your
Plus, he
bike.
probably doesn't want to have a longer conversation than he has to. He's probably sitting going like, "You didn't cut it. Thank you very much." Out the door, and
Yeah, so-
to the next one and get it done.
At the time, I
Patient.
I would no. When I was in my I went in. We just finished training, but I went in, had a shower. I cried in the shower for about 10 minutes, and then I had to put my gear back on again, training gear, because I had to do all my chores, and that's when I don't know what made me do it. You know, I probably regret doing that and saying that, but that's what happened. You know, and and I just got on with my day, you know, and I had to continue training, you know, like, just the way that environment was. It doesn't happen now today if a kid, for example, goes over to England now, yes, they're all academy players, they're all well looked after, you know, their mental health, their education, you know, how you know, if you are on a pro contract, how you're managing your money and stuff. There's a lot of support around.
Yeah.
The family are heavily involved, whereas for us, you know, you were sent over, you had to go to Preston College once a week. Shirley King, one of your ex-guests,
Right.
used to see Shirley every Thursday. So that was part of, you know, your process around the education side of things. You were then training twice a day, which was amazing. It was a dream, but what the mad side of it was the amount of work you had to do, which was good in a sense where you were cleaning all these professional footballers' boots, but you had to mop the floors, clean the toilets, and they used to bully us. Like, you were generally bullied, you know, and I know the bully words. I'm okay now, you know. Obviously, a lot of other players really were affected, certainly in the environment I was in, and there's been guys whose sons have since went over in the past 10 years. So some came back or whatever, but they had the experience of playing professional football, and a few people have asked me what advice you would give, and I've always given the advice of the first 6 months, 8 months, you and your partner, or his mum or whatever, you just book cheap flights. You know he's there, and you need to be there every weekend, and get past that first period around of the first 6 to 8 month period where the settlement, the homesickness, the feeling, the worth, you know, not coming home from training to nobody, the wee box room, which I had, you know, there was no mobile phones at the time. Well, there was mobile phones, but it was probably about £250 a month.
Yeah.
For a Nokia, one of them 3310s.
Snake on.
And so there was no, you got a phone call. My mum used to ring me twice a week, because it was a fortune. Even when the flights and all were like, from Belfast to Manchester, it was like £600-700, you know, and my parents couldn't afford to do it, you know.
Most people can't nowadays.
No.
Like, too. Do you know what I mean? It's a lot of money today as well.
And everything that you're, you know, if I can only think about my wife and me today, if my son's coming back with a feeling just that day and he wants to offload it, or he doesn't, and he holds it and he never lets it out for a long, that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
So sometimes I had to wait a week till my mum rang, and I was scared to use the phone and stuff, even though you were allowed to use it, but you just bottled it up and you held it in, and you just on the, you know, that's why I brought the photo as well, just to
let everybody know.
make sure you're.
Hopefully that everybody can see this. Who are you playing for here?
Another goal scored from Glenavon.
Great head of her back in the day too. Like, sorry if anybody can see that.
Lethal. That was against Loughgall. Used to score against them all the time.
Well,
yeah. So I thought you needed a picture when I seen your
picture. You bought presents as well as chutney and everything.
Yes, I did.
Not many people bring presents to the podcast, so
yeah,
this is like a wee interval. Well, not cracking that obviously, but
well, that's my wife's homemade chili chutney. She's my wife's like.
Does she sell these?
No, she should really, but she's like Mrs. Claus.
I like it.
But obviously, I've seen some of the guests you've had on, and I'm not surprised. Your Shirley Kings, Aaron Smith.
A lot of people didn't bring presents, and then I started asking a few people to bring maybe a wee something, and then Gavin Clements brought me a pair of sunglasses.
Well, that's
Jackie bought me a brook. the first day. He brought me his autobiography,
Right.
and then brought it home with him again. So he didn't really give me it. He just brought it, set it up, and then was like, "This is my book." And then I was like, "Oh, class, thanks." And then he's like, "No, it's not for you, son." And then brought it back.
It's
So,
like
fair enough.
for me, it's like going to someone's house. You don't come up empty-handed. You know, you have to come with a gift, learn a gift.
Well, going forward now, I'm going to expect people. Obviously, yes, we're going until January, so like New Year, new traditions.
Yeah, well,
We'll do that.
there is.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Talking of Irish League, this is something that we need to dive into because
Yeah.
when we've been in there, we've went for your English career. We've obviously had a good chat around the mental side of things and how that affected you. The Irish League career escalates quite dramatically, and by that I'm saying is you named it a slut journey, and I was just going to say journeyman to be honest, but
Yeah.
it's quite like myself. But there's DC, Coleraine, Lauren, Glenavon, Armagh, Cliftonville, Distillery, Newington, and Crewe.
Mad, isn't it?
Jesus Christ,
Do you know what?
that's more than me.
But see, most of them teams, I had 1 year just at them.
No wonder, but just probably just get rid of it, did they?
No, I done well and got a better move.
Okay, fair enough.
And
That makes
so when I came back from England, it was DC.
Okay.
DC were playing the Championship too. I done well. Lauren got promoted to the Premier League, Tommy Kincaid, and I jumped from there to Lauren.
Mm-hmm.
In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have left. No, what am I talking about? If it wasn't Lauren, it was Coleraine, and that was the Marty Quinn sort of story. It was before Lauren. It was Coleraine, and me and Connor Hagan had, and there was like Barry Johnson, Fal Murphy, and stuff were up, you know, trying to make it into the first team and stuff there, and they had just won the Irish Cup. Some top players had, you know, Gareth McCauley had just went across the water, and John Devine was there, Jerry Flynn, Patrick McAllister, Jody Tolan, what a striker. So there was all top players, and we were young players who obviously I'd got myself back on the ladder again to play the football and done well. And Coleraine, Marty Quinn had made contact to me on Connor, you know, because he had similar path where he was getting back into the game and stuff, and he invited us up and we'd done pre-season and whatever, and he liked what he was seeing us as maybe a couple of players maybe for the next couple of years that come through. We weren't seeing it like that there. We were once sort of got my sort of confidence back a wee bit, you know, a wee bit of slight arrogance where
You knew you could compete at that.
well, I was actually thinking I'm better than Patrick McAllister, and I hadn't seen Patrick McAllister play, and you know, it's mad to think that, you know, as an established, you know, captain of Coleraine, Tony Gorman, players like that. Me and Connor were just we were two balloons, and so it sort of got into conversation. And Jody Tolan had stitched this up where me and Connor were in the car, and Quinner had obviously said he wanted to sign us, and they had texted Quinner saying you need to get these two in together and negotiate, because they were asking us what sort of money you want to ask for it, and at least 500 or 600. We never played in Premier League, so they were holding their laughing in the car, and so up we go to the training ground, and Marty Quinn brings us into the change room and brings us in together as planned by them boys, and put a piece of paper down in the contract, £150 a week. Want you to sign? These are players for the future for us. All this, blah blah blah. He says, not a chance. I want 600. And like Marty went for us. Marty's want to hit us, and genuinely he did. You know, if you don't sign that there, I'll clock both of you. So I says, give us the pen, and I'll sign right in that. And so we signed that there, and in theory, you know, we wanted to play. I mean, some incredible players that was in that team, characters, and we tried to fit in, and you know, we were messers as well, and they were messing with us, and we struggled at times. You know, I certainly struggled at times to fit in. That, and I was wanting to play more, and I couldn't. I had no patience and stuff, and it was a long journey, and so in the end, we both wanted to leave. You know, we just wanted to play, and I ended up going to Lauren for a season, and again played every game. Didn't miss a match. We got the final of the League Cup. Cliftonville beat us in penalties. Quarter final of the Irish Cup. I think we finished 7th in the league. And some great players there as well. Young Mark Dixon, who went on to play for the Crews and stuff. Neil Ogden came from Portadown. Some cracking players. But I should have stayed there. But I done very well that year. And Coleraine, I re-signed again for Coleraine.
Right.
So it was in the back end that we played them in the quarter-final of the League Cup, and I'd scored the winner, and I took, after Quinn not playing me, I took my top off and run down the lane in front of him, and he had a fag in his mouth. This is true, and I let you run up. He's just smoking
as you're whipping it off type thing, or you've got.
No, I've run 30 yards just to get in his face, just to say this is what you're missing, more or less. He flicked the fag out in my chest, went out in my chest, and I'm gonna laugh about it today. I would see Quinner quite a lot at that. It's funny, like, but it was, and I ended up going back. I don't know why. I don't know why I went back, and I thought I'll play now. I'm gonna play now, and I didn't. I played the odd game. I was making 15 minutes appearances from the bench. I was getting on, but.
Not the way you want to be consistent, don't you, and play, start. And
I wasn't so much ready for the Irish League. It was really physical and hard, and some, as I say, players who were just fantastic at what they'd done. And Quinner wasn't one for. Quinner was tough love, as well, and me and a few other players just. Fran Murphy tells a cracking story about, like, we were travelling up the games and stuff, and. You look out the window, you're driving up saying, "There's the rain now." You know what Colerane's like? Yeah. It rains nearly every day. And we just turned to each other, me and Fra, saying, "That's us. We're getting gassed here because of the weather." And Marty's story. So we are holding our laughing the whole time, Marty, and we're waiting any minute now, to be called out. Horses for courses. Kieran, have you got a wee second? Fra, have you got a wee second? As you can see, the weather's too heavy for you. The pitch is too heavy. It's rain. We're like, Marty, it rains nearly enough every day in Coleraine.
Yeah.
No, but it need to be a bit more toughness out there, horses for courses and all that. It's the same. It's a long term. We were actually joking about it the other day when I seen Fry, and but that was Marty. He was tough love, and he had warriors of players in that team, and I wasn't that type of player, wasn't anywhere near the experience that they had and required at that time. So again, from not really doing much wrong, from being part of Quinner's plans in terms of the long term thing and bit of a squad player, but I end up going to Glenavon on loan till halfway through the season, and Tommy had left Larne. Tommy Kincaid had left Larne and took the Glenavon job. Mm-hmm. We ended up relegating Crusaders in the playoff, won the Intermediate Cup, Middlesbrough Cup, whatever, and got promoted. In that 6 months I went, and Glenavon, I signed a 3-year contract with Glenavon, and then they sacked Tommy. That's the next month. He just got them promoted, won all the trophies of what you can win at that level, and sacked them. I don't know still to this day what went on, but probably heard about Tommy, pouring wee glasses of whiskey for his players 2 minutes before kick-off. But
here, that works. Do you know what I mean?
But what a character, what a guy, Tommy. I love Tommy. He was class to play for. And so Colin Malone came in. I have a 3-year contract. No, you're out. You're transfer listed. I said, "She hasn't seen me play." He says, "No, I'm bringing my own players in." And he did. He brought a guy in, a couple of midfielders from Armagh City, whatever. And it sort of catapulted. Armagh City had just been promoted as well. So this was quite short. Less the clubs, but it was quite short. It was at times not my fault, but Armagh had just got promoted, as I say, and Gary McKinstry, literally the best manager you could play for. I mean, his team talk was, "Lads, there's a chance that Glens will score 3, so that means we'll have to score 4. That was sort of his team talk. He was a striker. He played for Dungannon Swifts back in the day, and he was a people's person, that proper man management, and old school, and just loved the players and loved being part of it, and just let you get on with it. And so I went there and loved every moment. I travelled with about Chris Walker. Remember Chris McGlens? He played centre half, legend character, brilliant crack. Used to travel together, as I say, and with a great bunch of lads up in Armagh, and Jay Campbell played up front, and James Slater and Big Shane Coney and stuff, so probably missing a few others. off the top of my head, but it was a great close-knit team and stuff, and that's probably my best season I had as a midfielder, and I scored 19 goals, which got me my move to Cliftonville, you know, because I'd done very well that season, and I was just getting forward, getting on the end of things, really not involved that much in the game, you know, anonymous, as some people used to call me, you know, but I would have popped up with a goal and stuff, you know, so as enjoyable as that was, it was hard then when you break it down, you know, the travel, the Armagh, I was loved, I was happy, I was doing well, and I didn't want to leave, but I couldn't not go to Cliftonville, you know, and Eddie Patterson had been on at the Christmas period, you know, and he wanted me in then, and Connor Downey was going to Linfield, and in the end we just waited the summer and stuff, and that's how the Cliftonville move materialised.
See, whenever you start hearing sort of chat around Eddie wanting you to sign for Cliftonville, is Cliftonville always a team that you wanted to play for? If you were going to the Irish League, is it I want to get to Cliftonville, I want to play there, or did you not really?
No, yeah. I mean, again, you can only go by your upbringing as well, and you know, I was from West Belfast, and Cliftonville was the
team. Yeah.
The team. You know, whether you're North Belfast, South Belfast, you know, I'm Catholic, and that's how it was. And of course, you know, I was there when they won the league in '98 and stuff. You know, for a short period, I would watch a few games as a kid before I went to England and stuff. You know, so it was very much a team you'd have kept an eye on and stuff. And as obviously I played Irish League, then I always looked out for the results. John D was playing. George, you know, they were all, you know, a lot of our friends, you know, the Skinnell brothers and stuff. So yeah, it was definitely somewhere I wanted to go, and
you definitely weren't going to say no.
Oh, not a chance. No, just to be. Even when I look back in the 4 years out at Cliftonville, you know, just even. I know obviously they went on and they won league titles and stuff, which John D never thought about, but you know, it reminds everyone, you know, so. He's probably up in Ballymena now, actually, you know, bringing his medals and stuff. That's sort of him, you know, so. But anyway, I would never begrudge or miss that was a fantastic change room, you know, the crack. Again, as I touched on earlier, I was just like, I'm one of them people that strives to get to somewhere you want to be and then start down tooling yourself, you know, and I worked incredibly hard and played some of my best football to get me these opportunities and stuff, and even at Cliftonville for a period I'd done quite well, but then the doubt crept in and stuff, and maybe I learned things that affect me, and you know, but as a whole, you know, being a part of that change room, and I'd like to think I was a popular member in the change room and stuff, and certainly with some of the pranks and stuff that we used to get on all the players and stuff, it was brilliant crack, and we all are really still keeping contact today and stuff. But Eddie came in, and you know, Eddie Patterson, that fantastic coach, probably a wee bit. I think if he reflects now, you know, I definitely think he should be still coaching at that higher level. You know, he quite extreme character. You know, really really good coach, but pressure when it was kicking in. You know. And I think he learned, obviously, from the Cliftonville stint, how he went on and managed that better when he won the Irish Cup and stuff, and with Glentoran and stuff. So you can only say hats off to that there. But he certainly he showed interest in me, and obviously Tommy Breslin was his assistant. Once you meet Tommy once, you'll never forget him, and you know, and the love and that again, every player wants to feel loved, and Tommy Breslin made you feel love, you know, and wanted, and the crack you used to have with him, and I suppose any regrets I have would be I'd love to have been part of that group, that because some of them players was part of my group, you know, and some of us left, but to see the success, you know, and you're pleased for the club, and you know, certainly for Brazzy and everyone else apart from Jonty, you know, so you were but you were, it was amazing change room, and you know, looking at the players, Ronan Skinnell for me arguably, and George McMullen, which, you know, two absolute stars, you know.
Yeah.
Ronan arguably the best player I played with, you know, in terms of local football, you know.
He just went about his business so, like, just so intelligent, so smart, like,
incredible.
Always played left back, but right footed. and just curled that ball up the line, was left.
He was so undervalued. I think he was a Rolls Royce. He could have.
But also, like, not to jump in on you there, but if you look at the characters here in the Cliftonville changing room, Ronan from the outside doesn't fit.
No, Ronan's a school teacher.
Do you know what I mean? Like, very much like just quiet and had a bit of fun. Yes,
he wasn't quiet. His nickname was Victor Meldrew. He was the grumpiest you'll ever meet.
But even every time because I always remember where I sat whenever I came in through the door, there was always the couple who was like the kids.
Yeah.
So whenever I came in, it was like 2 or 3 slats, and then there was Eamon, Scannell and Ronan.
Yeah.
And then that was like I ended up being with them two, sort of having conversations who looked after you, which was fantastic because they weren't as boisterous as everybody else.
No.
And you look up into the corner.
No, that's right.
And then you've the likes of your Jonties and Marty Donnelly's, and then you look over in that corner.
Joy Raiders, basically, yeah.
And then you've got Conor Davlin and the rest of the boys are sitting going like, this place, like that whole side there is mental. And then it kind of like worked its way, like chilled and relaxed. And
that really never changed. Like my time, even the your time, that really never changed. When you had like Katney was a big character, funny, really funny. But Katz was off the field was very quiet.
Yeah.
But in the same token, he was a joker.
Mm-hmm.
But in the 1-to-1, he's such a quiet fella, and but on the pitch he's nuts, an animal, and he'd tackle that wall for anyone, and there was all them types of characters, as you say, from your time, and so that never changed, even before. There was Chris Scannell, he's walking in the training with trying to sign us up for his dental surgery and stuff.
What? Fixed. Good thing is there's a couple of boys in there that probably had to. I mean,
yes,
George McMullen definitely could have lived on the dental practice.
George is really, and a few others have, and me as well. Cause I lost some of my teeth through football and stuff. So we've actually enhanced Chris's early retirement. From the.
It's all about giving back.
Yeah, so Chris has done well. To be fair, if Chris looks back on his Irish League career, he'll be saying I've done well with my teeth in this league.
100%.
And not to mention some of the Cliftonville supporters.
Well, true.
So,
and they'd be smart placing it on Cliftonville there, wouldn't it?
But great guy, another great guy, captain at the time when I was there. Really, the Holland brothers, John Conley in goal, Liam Fleming, Fran Murphy, Sean Friars. So
spoke to Friars actually recently. I've been torturing Friars to try and come on, but he keeps talking about it, and then he's like, and then he's like, I'll think about it. But
what a player!
Unbelievable. The stories I've heard about from Friars is.
He's literally again one of the him and Fran Murphy, way players. See today, if them two was playing today, wow, particularly in Irish League, they're bums off seat players. For this league the way it is now today, them two were doing that there on the old Solitude or the Oval when it was worse than it is. Amazing how they just glide through that grass. Amazing. So, but amazing times at Cliftonville.
Would Cliftonville have been your best time when you look back on your overall career, thinking it was the most fun that I?
It was probably the longest time in terms of stability.
Actually, really everywhere else for.
Yeah, it was stability and friendships. Even now today, the love that in the friendships that you got and still have, and yeah, the supporters, most of them are still today, really, really sound and really, appreciate
you being there. Yeah.
Yes, I mightn't have been a league winner or some of the players that was there, but certainly the Eddie Patterson era certainly catapulted them. It was a work in progress. Our squad, you think about the league winning side, we were probably, and this is no reflection on the players, but Mark Smith came in, he was a fantastic centre half. We had Decky and Big Davy who were fantastic.
Yeah.
But Mark just had that a wee bit more about him, and he's not paying me, by the way, because I know he's head of the academy and stuff to say it, but any team who had Liam Boyce and Joe Gormley up front will be that, and Marty Donnelly delivering from one side. Stevie Gard, are going to do well. And I had the early stages of Boise when he first broke into Cliftonville.
What was that like? Because then
how he's a footballer, I don't know.
He quickly goes to Word of Bremen. doesn't he?
Yeah,
Gets a mad move.
Story behind one, I'm sure it's been mentioned before, but Boise used to have a big 6-pack of Monster Munch and stuff, and big bottle of 2-litre bottle of Coke going to training and all, you know, before games and all. He was a typical kid from the Falls Road, so young, naive, so talented, unbelievable, like talented player. But I remember me and George he obviously travelled with us, we picked him up, so I remember us being in his living room when the Werder Bremen thing was coming about, and because I had knowledge and had experience going to play in England and stuff, so I sort of knew how, like, agents and all, and, you know, I was working and stuff, so it was presented that he was going over to Werder Bremen and stuff, and they wanted to sign him and all this here, and I just remember saying about, you know, asking for your digs and all to be paid. But I don't know whether Boise will remember this, but certainly I remember saying to his parents, you know, making sure your digs is, you know, whatever wages he's
part
getting
of your contract too.
Because they probably thought, oh, £3,000, but he had to pay for his accommodation or whatever. So I remember saying things like that there, and maybe asking for a signing on fee. He probably not remember it because he probably doesn't want to lend me £500 for getting him it, but it was mad seeing a young kid like that there, who the success he's had. You know, he's a great lad and such a talented kid, and there's no, it's a credit to him, you know. But it was nice to be a part of the start of his wee journey, and then obviously seeing snippets of Joe Gormley when he come on trial and put the ball in the top corner in a shooting drill, like, every time, and we're like, well, what the hell? And we turned to Chris saying, you can't do that, Chris, you know. No, it's banter, like, but there's just certain players that just had that X factor, you know, in that league. And, you know, when I was there, we were getting moved about from there was always a long joke about who played out in the graveyard shift, which is the right wing, and I got it most of the time, and it was soul destroying. Or Mark Collin played there, or Georgie's played there, and Kieran Cardwell then when he came in, and Stevie Garrett, but then obviously the Jonty and Cats thing, where that sort of started to usher me any sort of inclusion of around that. They were a fantastic partnership, and Cardwell was knocking on the door playing centrally as well, or George could play centrally, and so many talented players, you know, who were really top players in the league and stuff. And I, truth be told, that when Brezzy, I laugh when me and Brezzy had a great relationship, and Brezzy called me in to say I wasn't signing you and stuff, but we're laughing about it and stuff. Yeah. And he sort of got me in a headlock joking and stuff, as any of the players who played with him would know what he was like. And I had no hard feelings and stuff. I probably would have stayed for nothing, you know, played for nothing, just to be part of the change room and stuff. But I had great memories, and, you know, great camaraderie with some of the lads. And as I say, I walked away from Clonmel. Yes, I played in an Irish Cup final. Won a couple of County Antrim Shields and a couple of runners-up finishes. But overall, you know, there's not many players can, you know, for a kid who I'm quite proud now when I look back that I played for Clonmel, you know. And
I also winning medals at Clonmel too, because it's only recent years that they ended up dead. They won a couple of trophies and then obviously Irish Cup, and it's been a long time.
Yeah, well, certainly the league
big gaps in between where they have. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that was Clonmel in a nutshell. You know, obviously the huge gap for the Irish Cup, which is great to see that has now disappeared, that monkey off their back. But certainly from 2005, when the odd County Antrim Shield, whatever, and all the way up to the league winning team, you know, it was a work in progress. There was a lot of work put in from a lot of ex players and managers who came and gone and stuff, and planting the seed around wanting the club to be big again, you know, wanting the club to be successful and challenging Linfield. And equally, in my sort of era, I'm sure, you know, in some of your time when you were playing, you know, that Linfield team was incredible. You know, we played against the clean sweep team, and unreal. You know, I still think today that was arguably the best team of all time.
Still, people know, yeah.
And I bumped into David Jaffe a few times, and I had asked him, you know, what would it be now, that team or now? Oh no, jeez. But just, would you categorise that team now today? And obviously he does a lot of commentary and a lot of media work, and hearing obviously from, you know, certain, you know, ex players, and that Linfield team was incredible. So
even when you look at the people they had on the bench, probably people they had in reserves, they probably would have had a start.
Yeah, in most size league
probably
clubs.
compete top 4.
Absolutely, and we had 15 players, and that was it back then. And you know, obviously the finances. Clonmel have worked incredibly hard getting their opportunities in Europe. To play in Europe was a privilege on several occasions, and it helped with the finances. It helped Jared Lawler, who was chairman at the time, to implement a better strategy to get a bigger squad to compete.
And Jared was ruthless back then. He had to be because of the way the club was. And
Jared,
to see where the club is now and what he's done and left, and where he's obviously the things that he started doing in NFL too. Like you can't really put it past the man. Like Jared, exactly what he's doing.
Jared's done incredible work for Clonmel, and obviously a lot of the work that Jared's done, you know, not many fans or people would know that, you know, the impact it's had, you know, and certainly from what I had seen, you know, and you see, you know, he was always a guy present at whether it was training or your match days and meetings and whatever, and just really a Clonmel man through and through, and done his utmost to try and get Clonmel to the next level, and I mean he's part of that history as well, you know, so it's fantastic to see, you know.
In terms of your overall football career, we've touched on a lot in terms of where you began, where you finished off, but at what stage do you think, and I know we're leaving out a couple of teams here after Clonmel that you haven't been to, but at what sort of age do you think that it's time for me to maybe step back, and obviously you've touched on like player coaching roles and different things like that before you went into actually coaching yourself now by yourself, but do you kind of get that stage you think, I'm done here, I kind of want to maybe start tickling this maybe, and was coaching always like a wee itch that you want to scratch?
No, I see when I left Clonmel, I actually went, DC were still in the Premier League, and I went back 6 months later. I was done with it, you know, but I knew then, I had no injuries. I quit probably too early, probably comfortably. If anyone knows me the way I played, I was box to box, as I say, and was a fit lad. I had no injuries. I probably felt sad that I left, you know, but you know, that sort of empty feeling of that environment, and I just fell out of love with it. You know, I just really, it was just in my head too much. You know, I wanted to do other things. I wanted to have a family as well. I wanted to have. There was more to life than the football, and you know, I wanted to try and do other things. Probably regret at times a wee bit too early, as I say, but.
But what age were you when you finally?
I was 34.
I mean, it's not that.
No, I could have quite easily played. I was 40.
I think if I played 34, I'd probably be in a wheelchair.
Well, I again,
as you say, I
was quite lucky. I had no injuries. You know, bar when I was a teenager, you know, but I was very fortunate. I was fit every week, you know, and available most of the time, and I just felt that, you know, felt like the stuffing was got kicked out of me, you know, and when you wanted to be somewhere and you can't
be there, it's like, what's the point?
And it's no reflection of the time and effort others give, and probably part of me where at times I'm a people pleaser, and I sort of helped other people out in certain things, you know, where I wanted to give them a bit of support so they can get their foot in the door with managers' jobs, or being part of a team that's shown my experience that I had gained over in helping the younger players, whatever, and as the older and the last few clubs I played with, you know,
instead of being more selfish and just going, I'll just do this for myself for a while.
And it's again, I think that's a big problem still today, is that there's so many young lads and teenagers are certainly players, you know, they're fulfilling something for someone else rather than themselves, and you know, it's only when you look back and you think, you know, I could have done that better. I should have been stronger there. I should have said no there. You know, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, but you know, it's certainly predominantly, you know, positive, a lot of the football journey, but equally as them thoughts started to enter my head, particularly after the Clonmel thing, I just wanted to stop, you know, and I was falling out of love with it, and then the point where I wasn't liking it at all, you know, and a lot of players, I'm sure you could agree that it became a chore then.
Yeah.
Of going, getting in the car,
it's a burden pretty much.
Trying
as
to,
much as you're making a bit of money, it's like, I'm giving up a lot of time. Don't want to do it. Going down, it's cold, sweat, and there's this thing going.
I actually started to feel for, like maybe my sort of home life, where it just, as much as I, had the support and still have this day, and I'm probably doing more now as a coach than I did probably as a player, and which is hard at times, but equally I was probably looking for excuses, and again, I'm sitting here today admitting that at times you look for an excuse, so you wanted a way out, you wanted to quit, like I've mentioned several times that I got so far that then I wanted to let go.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that's my upbringing or whether that's, a fear or whatever. I don't know. I'm still digging deep within myself of, what that is. But it's a bit of like quitting, when you had it in your hands, you just stop and you fall out of love with it, or you run away. And that's in a nutshell how I sort of felt most of my sort of journey went. A lot of highs and then the lows, Do
you feel that things are different now with the coaching that you're doing at Cliftonville, and the sort of time and effort that you're putting into that is probably it's the best way to say, like, you've rejuvenated your whole life, getting back and doing coaching and helping kids, and probably coming at it from a whole different perspective.
Massive perspective change of seeing it from a different lens, seeing it more in a supporting.
Does that give you a bit more of a buzz?
It does. I love the coaching, and the competitiveness is still there. Anyone coaching,
you want
you do. It doesn't, and you try to say that's not the case, but it is. And it's. But I'm coming from a nurturing thing where it's not just solely. I've done social work for working with a children's charity for 10 years and seeing real extreme circumstances and really sad circumstances, and probably that lack of nurturing that I sort of wanted for myself, as a young kid, probably catapulted me in that environment to try and help. Yes, I had that environment where I was always trying to help others instead of myself. So, but I knew probably deep down it was a path that was going to lead me to that sort of inner peace, if you like, So it took a long way to get to that point. But the coaching side of it is something where I feel probably I feel most comfortable sharing the knowledge and the learning I had, or the coaching badges that I've went through, and
just the life experiences in general for kids. Like,
I suppose it's like me going to train to be a doctor. You want to give something back and help someone. Obviously that's a really, really high example of around an expertise, but certainly in sport as well. If football is all I knew, and is where I felt most comfortable talking about and trying to. Through time, I built that sort of caring and understanding, resilience around helping young kids, because I was that young kid back in the day, so I can relate to what that felt like.
But you're what, under 14 manager? 13 and 14?
Under 14.
Did you picture any of your kids being stuck on a flight, put into an Ibis hotel or whatever in Croydon, and told, here, somebody's going to pick you up?
Not a chance. Not a chance.
How mad is that?
It's the amount of times I've done that at that age, and I have my oldest is coming 14, and to think that is actually what used to happen, is a scary thought, and it's something probably the kids today probably couldn't cope with, and
100%.
They probably would be okay with their phones because they can ask their phones
or
what to do, or text or ring, or stay on the phone. But
if you were to isolate a kid with no phone, and they had to wait for somebody to call them or do X, Y, and Z, then they'd be like, so there's only 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the TV.
Yeah, and there's so much.
Fire stick, no TV,
nothing. and in theory, when you think about that, and you're like, without them things that I learned and stuff, and I'm not naive enough to think that obviously I'm in an academy, so there's an expectation, certainly at my age group and up, if we're trying to nurture kids, and would love to get all the kids to go through to the next under 15, 16s, all the way up to what's happening. Jim Magilton's allowing these kids to
come express themselves,
come and play in the first team. There's been a few most recently, or in the last, Joe Sheridan and them one. So the pathway is very clear there, but I'm not. I'm in a very sticky age group where you can burst people's dreams or ambition, and
Yes.
and I've been there, and I some of the conversations maybe with parents, and unfortunately players have came and gone even in my age group in the last number of years, and that could be a combination of whatever, or opinions, or game time, or just environments where we feel that they probably have more contact time or touches of the ball,
Yeah.
never asked the player to leave Cliftonville in terms of we have an A and B team, so you try and navigate them through to still remain. And
you're just not good enough for me. This team and this team might suit you.
And I hate even, and sometimes people don't see it there, but I know what that feeling is like, because I've been part of it.
Yeah.
I grew up getting, and even as an adult, getting told your face doesn't fit, or it's his turn now, or he's playing more, and
I also think though that whenever you're talking about that I think that rejection's a big thing, and I think that it needs to be probably not highlighted as such, but kids need to face rejection, because it's going to happen to you in all aspects of your life, whether that's trying to get a job, or not getting the grades that you want, the GCSEs or A levels, or not getting to the school that you want, or the courses that you want. And like it helps.
That's the problem today, I feel, is, again, I don't mean to sound really negative, but kids not able to suffer and disappointment.
100%.
There's parents still today, and you see and you hear them, or they challenge you, my such and such, why is this not doing all right, and the sole burden. Yes, as a coach, there's a responsibility, and you want the best of the kids, and you're trying to get them to be what their dreams is, and to be the next level, whatever. And the reality is, it's 99 times out of 100, there's only a 1% that's going to even go to England.
100%.
Even to play Irish League, as you know, it's huge.
Yeah.
Trying to get there is massive. So I'm very much one, and I do sound like I would bore some of the parents I work with in my group and stuff, or previous parents, around education, around really. I try and be upfront from the start, saying there's no guarantees. It's, again, I've Matt touched on it. It's toxic. It's an environment where, suffer, disappointment happens. So unfortunately, sometimes for some of the kids, and I love working with the kids, and I love each and every kid I work with, and or have the opportunity of paths you have, but sometimes them paths go. But it doesn't mean you don't have
the care,
memories of the care, or wanting the best of them and stuff. And I feel there's it's going two directions, where the parents are just absolutely, most of them, not all of them, some great parents, delusional with their thought, living their perspective of what they see football is in their lenses of their own kid.
Yeah.
Shouting on things but they haven't even a clue, half of them have what they're saying. With all due respect, without sounding, even like, I've heard parents shouting, and even mums shouting things on the pitch, you're like, press and take a touch and all, and they're like, well, what? But my feedback on that there was, and I don't mean to sound harsh and anything, but it would be, the kid needs to figure it out for himself.
100%.
Needs to express, needs to dig deep within him on what he's been learned and coached on what he already has, rather than getting an earful from the side where it's not support. So that's going really, really to high level, where they're getting now involved with referees and shouting on the pitch and all, and fights, and it's really concerning. And equally the kids now on the phones and stuff, and they're probably in our time, where if you remember probably more so in my time, Johnny, where the Ireland Saturday night or the Sunday night, what score you got out of 10?
Aye, numbers, yeah.
That's the best interpretation I would have of what a kid now, an academy kid at a 14 up, they're how they play, and then they post it on their Snapchat or their story, and then it's just what they get online, the feedback and stuff, and their status is all about that. And it's probably us as like, I got a 6 out of 10 here in the Sunday life, and that used to affect me.
Yeah.
So
many people have came along and said the same thing, that they
called
for it on a Sunday, and then they got it and they were like, how the fuck was I only a 5 or a 6? That's a joke. And every week there.
Conor McLaughlin, who does Cliftonville still to this day, I used to call him 5 or something, because that's all he used to score me, 5. and I might have scored a couple of goals. We banter about it, like, you know, but that was it's mad to think even what it was. It was the ego taking over. It was you wanting to feel that sort of arm around you, or that he feels that, or that's a positive thing. Whereas in theory, you were like, well, why was I doing that there? So I used to look for the score every week and like
hits your own endorphins, doesn't it?
And it's no different. It's no different to a kid now. Just maybe, and they all have these videos and all, and they all get the footage all clipped back to them,
and they're popping it up,
and it's on their social media. And when that stops, and then the likes and the things all stop, you know, it's the same thing, you know. So it's a worrying sort of environment where certainly Cliftonville, you know, we've been doing a couple of workshops. Mark Smith has brought in a lot of external people around, you know, navigating through that for the young kids and supporting them as coaches and stuff, and recognizing what is important and how we can look after them a wee bit better, you know. So it's good that we're trying to do the right thing around that there, and come together and support the kids better.
I think it needs to be highlighted today. I think that, as you say, kids are very drawn to their phones and posts.
Very.
It is one of the biggest factors in today's day and age, and how to navigate around this and push it forward in the right way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I also think that having the right people in charge, the likes of yourselves, and you have these people like, say, Joe McDonald, he talks about Noah being away, and I'm like, people who have life experience and have played the game at a high level, and they're able to coach kids in detail. And this is, like, please don't think I'm being harsh here and saying that it's not just someone's dad.
No.
Where it used to be. And we all need those people's parents to step in and take sessions 100%, or coach teams. But
absolutely,
when you're trying to get certain things through to people, by all means, some people know the laws of the game and are played, but sometimes those little life experiences will help those kids a lot more than just someone's parents.
Yeah, and that's some great points there. And, you know, even on the Joe thing, where it's refreshing knowing that his young lad is going over there with so much knowledge around, well, certainly
so
my
much
dad,
back and so much support to be down further.
It's important, and Joe's a very upfront and honest guy, you know, and it's great that, you know, I suppose, unless most of the kids who are getting that exposure, some will have parents who's maybe played the game at some degree. So
I'm sure
there is an element of support there, but I think a wee bit more off the field with the phones, you know, because it from the social work and the coaching, and here, you know, you see some of the things you see and hear, you know, it is worrying.
Yeah,
and it's important that there's more done to educate the kids. And any academy in England, this is one of the top of listings that they're doing, educating them around phone usage. How many players have you seen now might have posted something several years ago as an academy player, and then they've made the first team, and then they've been got back and prosecuted or whatever, you know. So once it's out there, you know. So that's certainly, you know, any feedback is, again, the last point I'd make on what I try to educate our players is to love themselves.
Yeah,
believe in yourself, you know, trust what you do, and, you know, and the rest will look after itself, and enjoy it, and education, and there's no other way to approach it, but just other than the parents, you know, and most of them are on board, and it is healthy to be disappointed. It is healthy to get rejection, you know, if it's used right, and fuel to be better.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, listen, thank you. I feel like there's no better way to end than ending on those positives, and let's be honest, just tell the parents who aren't getting on board.
Nah.
But listen, we finish on hugs.
Yes, so
Top man, thank you very much. It's not thanks for having me. My pleasure. Cheers. I really appreciate it. Top man. Join us next week on the On the Spot Football Podcast for yet another fantastic guest. You're just going to have to wait and figure it out when we post it on Sunday. See you soon.